All right, guys, go ahead. You're live.
Hey guys, we're live. Galveston Bay Fishing Show. This is our 10th episode, David.
10 weeks. Amazing. 2.5 months.
Have we
Flown
made
by.
it together that long?
God, that's amazing. It's good to be back, y'all. I've been out. I had a little surgery myself, and then what, Eric, 2 weeks ago, I was 30 miles offshore, get a text from my family. My mother had fallen, possible broken hip, and sure enough, that's what she did.
Broken hip, hip replacement, still in the
Still in
hospital.
the hospital, so my time's been limited here, and it still will be until I can get her home and get her well. So,
Honey, is everything fine on the cameras?
Yeah, we're looking good. I just wanted to make sure our shots were good before
we have our producer and boss.
Our producer is here.
I'm here, guys. Happy Thursday. One more day
Guys.
until the weekend. And gals.
Anglers and lady anglers.
That's right.
Just
Hey.
anglers.
Hey, the purpose of the show, we have an idea of what the purpose of the show is. We're
Hey.
still working on it, but it's supposed to be
Fall.
everything Galveston Bay.
That's right.
Everything Galveston Bay. This show centers around Galveston Bay only. We concentrate on Galveston Bay fishing. We don't talk about Sabine. We don't talk about Matagorda. We don't talk about Port Mansfield. We don't talk about anything but Galveston Bay. And in fact, this Saturday, is it the 22nd, is the first day of fall, y'all. So,
Best time of year to go fishing,
man,
in
it's
my opinion.
right around the corner. Cooler weather. We're expecting our first cool front next week, they say. So, looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to the cooler weather.
And for what it's worth, no disrespect to any other bay system, I have fished in South Louisiana. I went to LSU, Louisiana State University, and I'd fished down in Cocodrie and Grand Isle and the Fouchon area a lot. And
Sportsman's paradise.
so, hey, no disrespect to any of those areas. What we want to do is help you, the anglers, fish the bay system that's closest to you, because we realize that this is the bay that's closest to the people that watch this show. That's what we believe. And people now don't really have the time and the abilities to be driving and trailering their boat all over the place and learn these different bays and catch fish. We believe if you want to catch fish based on what we've seen from other customers and what we hear, you need to focus in on one area and learn that area.
Correct.
Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to catch fish.
You know, it's kind of amazing. You look at the size of Houston, what, 4, 5, 6 million people?
Yeah.
And then look what's right in their backyard, y'all. We're 45 minutes out of downtown Houston here at Eagle Point. So you can leave downtown Houston in 45 minutes. You can see the view that we see right here.
And what's so nice is that doing this show, we're able to give tips and actually answer questions live for all of you. So if you want to learn where the hot spots are in general, or the best way to catch a certain type of fish, we talk about those things every single week here. So you could be listening to this on your way down to Eagle Point and you're almost a little bit ahead of the game. And then obviously we're here to help you once you get here.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a jump start, especially if you're stuck to fishing on a weekend. You kind of know what's going on. And we're always here to help. So, I mean, we try to make this show enjoyable, entertaining, and informative.
That's right. And I just want to say that we just started our Galveston Bay Fishing Show Facebook page. So I actually tagged it in our status and would love it if you guys went over and liked that page. We're probably going to go live from that page in the future. So head on over, like that page.
If we can figure it out.
And yeah, if we can figure it out. We'll figure it out. We will. In a week, we should be able to figure it out. But yeah, we will be probably going live there from now on. We'll share it obviously over on our Eagle Point page. But our plan is to make this bigger and better than it already is.
Yeah,
now we're a little small baby show.
Yeah, we've been asked, we've been told, and it's been suggested to us to do certain things. We would love to do a lot of the things that have been suggested. However, we are on a small budget.
We're on a small budget.
It's called no budget.
Yeah, and we're stretched thin. Like, we're all doing a million things.
Yeah,
so.
I'm donating my time. Rebecca's donating her time, and David's donating his time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hope that we at least do a job that is worth your time to watch. So that being said, let's get into the show.
Yeah, let's talk about the catches of the week, guys, because we had some good catches. Do you want to start with the ones that we have good pictures for first?
Sure, let's talk about Mike Cassell.
All right.
Mike and Jerry Cassell.
Mike and Jerry and their friend.
Jerry's been one of our customers here at Eagle Point for a very long time, and his brother Mike, and they took out one of their good friends, and they had 30 trout. They said they caught upwards of around 100 trout or more, and they ended up with these 30 keepers.
This was, what day was this? Monday, Tuesday?
This was Monday.
Monday.
Now, they caught 100 trout or more, the three of them?
That's what they say.
Okay, those are big numbers. So the trout's clearly biting, especially after a week of all that rain.
Yeah, the rain. Well, we'll get into that in a moment. The rain didn't hurt anything so far at all. In fact,
it probably helped.
It's helped. But Mike, Jerry, Keith, they had those 30 trout, very nice trout. And then that same day, we had another boat slip customer. His name is Steve, and Steve had a limit, a one angler limit of 10 trout, and said the fishing was fantastic. And so Monday was great. And then we move into Tuesday, and we had Juan Cruz, and that's
a picture on there.
That's on the Facebook page, on our Eagle Point Fishing Camp page.
Juan fishes a lot. Now, Juan's a good fisherman, but typically he's catching them, and he caught them again.
Yeah, Juan and his wife, Addie.
They've done a great job. They really have kind of learned the bay. When you talk about learning the bay and practicing, they're really catching a lot of fish.
Yeah, and what Juan did and Addie, look, Juan, I don't know how much Juan had fished prior to storing his boat at Eagle Point. I can only tell you that since he put his boat here, he really has participated, engaged in our small little marina community, if you will.
I've taken him out a couple times.
He's been fishing with Captain David Dillman with his guide service, and then
he goes to our workshops,
been to our seminars, and he is just really learning the bay. I mean, he's doing it on his own now. Look, this is just information he's seeked out, and we've given it, and then I'm sure he's got information from other people as well that know a lot. And man, he's been catching them. So, anyways, he and Addie, his wife, has been really
Addie
fishing.
can catch fish. She can fish.
And then we had Captain John. Captain John had fish yesterday. And Captain John came in yesterday afternoon. My dad spoke to him. He had some nice trout. And then what's not pictured there, David, is he had a nice box of sand trout. And then lastly, Captain Wendy, not to confuse you, but Captain John was yesterday. That would have been
Wednesday.
And Wendy fished.
And Wendy also fished on Wednesday, and he and his friend Pat had approximately 15 trout and 30 sand trout.
That's good. Fishing's good. Fall's here.
So today, let's talk about today. Some of the anglers went out today. They did not have as good of a day because the wind was up.
Yeah, Bob Sermon came in. Bob's been fishing out of here I've been here, Eric, 30 years almost? So Bob's been fishing out of here since I've been here, and him and his buddy came in. And Bob, basically, he concentrates on, redfish, and he caught them. So I think they had 6 reds between them. They caught them yesterday, too, from what he said. So the red fishing's still holding up. I mean, the red fishing's been good.
Hey,
I can honestly say that.
We're going to get into the red fishing in a minute with more detail, but I wanted to ask about the shrimping. How's the shrimping been?
Yeah, so that covers the fishing that we've had recorded here at Eagle Point, and then the shrimping from the boats that do work out of this facility. They've done really well this week. There was a couple off days, slow days, but overall the shrimping again has been great.
Now I have been gone for, I guess, a couple of weeks, it seems like. And then yesterday I get a call from, one of our workers, Rob, downstairs, and he says, hey, we got some shrimp in, but they're running small. And so today the same shrimper went out and he came in with this, with this shrimp, and I noticed that, man, the size has definitely decreased. So we've had a push of shrimp from out of the back parts of the bay, from out of the marsh. And how long will they last? How far will they push? Man, the little bit of rain, maybe the little bit of temperature drop with the rain, it's pushed these shrimp out. And typically that's a good sign. I mean, that's a fall sign. Things are starting to change.
Well, there's numerous things that are good there. One, that there are shrimp to come out of estuaries, and these shrimp have settled down in the middle part of the bay, which that's where we're located. And what the shrimp boats catch is just a microcosm of what's out there.
What's out there?
I mean,
yeah,
it's just,
they can't drag.
it's
the whole
not even
bay.
almost measurable. But that, what that means is that they weren't flushed out of the bay like Harvey did.
No,
And
not
so
at all.
these shrimp that were in the estuaries, some have come out, and then like David and I were talking about with some other people, it doesn't mean these shrimp are now going to go to the Gulf. We don't necessarily know if they will or they won't. It depends on the
Fronts now.
the fronts,
The
the
temperature
water
drops.
salinity, the water temperature. But they're here and they're hitting. They'll start to hit the shorelines.
So it looks good. Everything looks like, definitely seems like fishing's good since I've been, out, and the catches were good. Salinity levels, great, y'all.
Tell 'em what it
this
is.
rain, it's like 17, 18 parts per million.
And what was it? We were telling people
It was 22, 23 before all the rain. So we had, I don't know how much rain they've had here. I know how much rain we've had down where I live in Jamaica Beach, but we've had a measurable amount of rain, and it really hasn't hurt the salinity at all. If anything, it's helped a little
17 is good. What Galveston, what a lot of people will say, the old timers, is Galveston used to sit more in that 16, 17, 15, 16 range back before the deepening and widening of the Houston Ship Channel.
Yeah.
And the starving of fresh water from the expansion of Houston and stealing water off the rivers.
Right. That's an optimal.
17 is good. Now, to give you a reference point, if you haven't listened to any of our shows before and or the show where we talked about Harvey, after Harvey, it went from in the high teens, low 20s, it went to, we recorded 1.
1, 3, 2.
So, yeah, big deal.
Hey guys, let's talk a little bit about the fishing. We're kind of talking all about the shrimping. We mentioned the red fishing. What can people expect this fall when it comes to fishing, whether it's the reds, trouts, or even flounder?
Well, let's talk about the trout fishing. Trout fishing this past week's outstanding. I think it will continue to be outstanding. I think the fish are here. The catches are showing it.
Yeah.
This is the time of year to really start catching them.
And what about birds?
Birds.
A little early or no?
No, the birds will start working. In fact, that's funny that you said that. Before everything happened the last 2 weeks, I fished some birds up north of here, and they had fish underneath them, trout underneath them. So the bird action is probably already started. Will continue to get a little better and better. When we talk about birds, we're talking about the trout feed on these shrimp, and the shrimp get pushed up to the surface because they're running from the trout. And as they get pushed up to the surface, the seagulls and the terns make easy prey of them, and they start plucking them out of the water. So it kind of pinpoints you to the school of fish.
Okay.
So you find the birds and then you find the fish.
Birds, find the fish. Now, will some of these fish be undersized? Yes, it depends on the flock. So you just gotta, choose them wisely. And if you start catching a bunch of undersized fish, I would say just leave them and move to a different flock of birds. If you're into chasing the birds, there's no reason to try to catch 100 trout to keep 10, because you're doing too much damage to the resource.
How shallow are you fishing?
Shallow.
Shallow.
They're just right up underneath the surface.
Okay.
If the fish are under birds.
If they're under birds.
Yeah,
if they're not under birds.
If they're not under birds, I'd still fish. I was fishing shallow. I've been fishing 3.5 feet up underneath the cord, no matter what depth of water. If I'm in, 3 foot of water, I'm fishing shallower than that.
Now,
but
David says that I like to fish deeper.
Eric fishes deeper, but I fish shallower.
So that we will leave as
a debate.
As a discrepancy.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I fish deeper, David fishes shallower, and
I'm shorter. It's easier to cast.
Why
Why
don't you fish both? One deep, one shallow.
Well, when he and I fish, that's one thing that is advantageous.
That we do.
Now, when David fishes shallow, he's not fishing like
I'm not like a foot.
1, 2, 3 feet. He's 3 to 4. I'm more like 6, 7, or 8.
Right.
I like to fish deep.
Even if it's hot.
No, when it is hot,
When
for
it
sure.
is still hot.
Oh, I mean, yes, the
Yeah,
opposite.
if we're fishing-
When it's cold, you still fish deep?
when it's
cooler? We're talking about this cold
when
front?
it really cools off, well then typically you're in much shallower water, which then means you do have to shallow up no matter what. And then I will fish, if I'm in say 3 foot of water, then I'll fish 2.5. But I normally don't fish super shallow ever myself. But that's just a discrepancy in our experiences. So.
Well, you both catch fish, so it works for both of you most of the time.
And then sometimes it doesn't work at all.
There are definitely times we don't catch fish.
Right.
Hey, so let's ask and talk about the redfish, guys. How are the redfish? It's been such a good season.
Red
for
fishing
reds.
is still, I mean, if you want them, go catch them.
Yeah.
That's about what it's boiled down to this year. It's been a phenomenal year on redfish, and it still continues to be. So if you want to go catch redfish, just go catch them.
And
Structure for redfish. Pilings, shorelines with shell.
give them some locations, or do you want me to cover that?
Man, you can cover that. You can go ahead.
Well, David and I know that we've caught, and other people have caught fish between Eagle Point and April Fool Point, this shoreline, and out in front of Moses Lake Floodgate to the right, and most people will call that Miller's Point. But over the last couple weeks, we do have some confirmed catches, some nice ones from the Seabrook Flats and Kemah Flats. So look, between now and December, that's a real nice area between Eagle Point and basically people say Red Bluff Reef. That's a lot of shoreline to work.
Yes, and the reason is that as these fronts come through, and typically the earlier fronts pull a northeast wind, but then the later fronts, a really good cold front will pull a northwest wind, and that whole shoreline coming up from Eagle Point, all of it, it's all protected. You can just run up
from Red Bluff Reef all the way to Moses Lake Flood. Moses
all
Lake.
that, all this side of the bay is protected from all.
So
that
there's
wind.
redfish all in there. The only thing that has been said is that, and there's no like solid statistical evidence of if this is true or not, but just from what I've heard from people, it seems as if the fish earlier in the year, the redfish along the Kemah, Seabrook area were smaller, and I didn't hear of a lot of keepers, keepers and limits. This shoreline, a lot of keepers.
A lot of
keepers. And so
Like limits almost every time.
very nice limits, good
Yeah.
keepers. Now I'm like I said, we're repeating ourselves, but I'm starting to hear of more keepers, more limits around the Seabrook Flats, Kemah Flats. So there you go.
What about flounder, guys?
Man, it's this time of year. The flounder fishing, just monitoring my little Facebook group and everything. I've seen pictures of flounder already being caught. So this is the time of year to really get ahead of it and go out and start trying to catch them if that's what you want to do. If you're into flounder fishing, don't wait for the run to begin because then you miss it. But go ahead and start now because these fish will start staging right now. They'll start staging on both of our shorelines from here towards Clear Lake and then back to April Fool Point, and especially around Dickinson at the intake, by the old intake where the HLMP power plant is. These fish will start staging on these shorelines, and typically they'll be big. They're not going to be the little males. If you're catching them right now, you're going to catch some nice flounder, and that's what I've seen already. And there's several ways to fish for them. Of course, everybody goes, hey, finger mullet, mud minnows. Yeah, that works too. But shrimp, you've caught them on shrimp.
Yes.
We talked about, you said, hey, I had some of my best days just jigging around the pier pilings of the old Eagle Point fishing pier that used to be here. Yeah. And, I have too, especially that. They'll eat a shrimp. And so there's different ways to fish for them. You can fish for them with a typical flounder rig. Typically, it's just the same thing. A slip weight like we do with croakers, and then the bait on the bottom of it. Or you can fish a tandem rig where you have a artificial lure acting as your weight, and then of course your flounder hook. And so I usually catch big flounders. So I use a really big hook. This is a joke, y'all. So I just put this on there just so anybody.
Hey, well, it's good so then they can see what you're talking about.
Correct.
There you go.
A big hook catches big flounder.
Big flounder, right? They got big mouths.
Show them just a couple things to think about.
Yeah. So look, typically, you either use a treble hook, or you use a single hook, a single Kell hook. They also make specific hooks that are called flounder hooks that are basically made like a Kell hook.
This is a one.
Turn a little bit. That's a one.
This is a one, and this isn't. This is a this is a 6 treble. I like a 6 treble, but as David said, we could spend a lot of time talking about exactly which hook style people prefer, and there's different styles that people might prefer than these, but this is just really more a size thing we're showing you that you might consider when you're going for the flounder. Okay.
And some people use smaller hooks than that, but flounder have an extremely large mouth, and when they start to feed, they are aggressive. They can actually, it's the only fish out there that actually breaks its jaw open to eat. So their jaw will completely expand and actually dislocate while they're eating. So they have huge mouths.
And this is too large.
And this is too large. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
What would you be using that on? Or is that just like for nothing?
Kingfish, sharks.
There you go.
Wahoo. But anyway, I just found it and I thought, hey, man, I kind of like those hooks myself. So anyway, so this is a tandem rig that's pretty popular. You have a lure on top. Either this is a flounder pounder, and gulp work really great, y'all. A gulp with a lead head. This is a 1/4 ounce lead head. And then you put your hook on the bottom, and then you put your live natural bait on the hook that you're using. And you actually throw this out there and slowly just drag it across the bottom that you're fishing. And typically your fishing areas with drains, where maybe a little bio or a little marsh drains out along a shoreline, and you drag it along the edge of that drain. Or this time of year, our shorelines, like I said, with the pier pilings, you can get up near the pier pilings and start jigging this, dragging along the bottom, and the bait's like this, and the flounder will come up and hit that bait. And typically they'll hit the live bait, and sometimes they hit the artificial bait. Now, if the flounder hits an artificial bait, there's no waiting. You can just go ahead and pretty much set the hook because he already has it. But a live natural bait, a flounder will actually kill the prey and then come back and swallow it. So you got to
give it a minute.
Give it a minute. Some old timers say count to 15, count to 8, but just give them a minute to get it in.
Why when you say old timers, these old timers? Old timers caught a lot of fish.
Old timers, yeah, but that's how I learned how to flounder fish.
Okay.
I mean, from an old timer.
Can you feel the difference between catching it on this hook versus the weight?
Between an artificial?
That's an artificial.
Yes, you can tell the difference.
But I thought you said it was weighted. No?
It is. It has it has a jig.
That's one of the things David didn't explain is this has multiple reasons. One of them is this is weighted, folks. So this helps the casting.
That's your weight.
Yeah, this is the weight, but it's a weight and a artificial bait. So you're using kind of two things at once, and you're dragging these along the bottom slowly, jigging them.
Jigging them slowly, bounce it along the bottom to where it just drags and bounces, and the flounder will thump it. And then just count to about 8, set the hook, and you'll know. If the flounder hits your artificial bait, you'll know right away because he'll thump it and start swimming off with it, and you got him. But the live natural bait, he will actually kill first and then come back and eat it and swallow.
So you can kind of feel him like...
Oh, you'll feel them. It's definitely...
Now, how much line do you have out when you're doing that? Are you staying closer to the boat, or are you kind of casting further out?
Casting further out and dragging it along the shoreline is the key. We'll fish for them and we'll cast out and just drag it along the bottom and give it some line, let it sink, and then slowly reel and let it drag along the bottom that you're fishing.
Are you anchored or no?
I am anchored, yes.
Okay.
Now you can catch them drifting like that too, but it's easier if you anchor up on points, drains, structure, and then try to fish it. If you're fishing the pier pilings, a trolling motor definitely will come in handy because you can go up and down that pier and you can basically vertically jig and they'll hang around right around the pier pilings.
We've got a couple of questions, guys. Do you want to hear?
Sure.
I do want to cover one thing real quick.
Yeah.
Now, some people have heard me say this before, that you can real effectively walk down a pier, but the pier has to be really, for the most part, unoccupied at that time for it to work really great. But you can walk down a pier and put the line in the water, and with an artificial bait or a live shrimp or a live croaker, preferably medium to smaller in size croaker.
And we'll talk about the croaker.
We have some really nice croakers that people used the last couple years that we specifically have kept.
Wendy started
in the fall. Wendy Marshall started that, and it's been super effective. So you use the small croaker, small shrimp, artificial bait, walk down the pier. And I was telling Rebecca and David that as a kid, that was one of the things my dad allowed me to do, was go over to the Eagle Point fishing pier, and I would walk down the pier, and I would just pull that bait down the pier. Just I'm walking with it, and I'm just walking really slow.
Give it a little
And
twitch.
then as I'm walking with that bait down the pier, then that flounder, as this bait's being drugged, that flounder, then you feel it just come up and grab it. And then, like David said, you wait 8 seconds, 10 seconds, and then you just hook them.
Set the hook because they got bony mouths.
That's
Don't
a
be
great-
afraid to set the hook.
And I saw somebody was asking if you do not have a boat.
Yeah, someone wants to know, if you don't have a boat, where can she take, this is Retha, she wants to know where she can take her 6-year-old to go fishing.
So definitely a 6-year-old. You don't want a 6-year-old wade fishing trying to do this off a shoreline. So there's 18th Street Pier would be good.
18th Street Pier is fantastic.
What about Sunset?
Sunset Pier,
Would be
fantastic.
really good.
I
Which
grew
one's
up.
lower?
Sunset's lower,
That's
and
probably better for a 6-year-old.
I've told many people I grew up fishing next
Yeah.
to Sunset Pier on a pier there.
Right. Seawolf Park.
Seawolf Park, and then the
Red Bluff.
pier over there off Red Bluff.
Sylvan Beach has a pier.
Um,
What's the name of the park?
But Sunset's right over
Pine
here,
Gully.
right?
Pine Gully Park has a
There you
great
go.
pier.
Great pier.
I personally would wait maybe another 20, 30 days before Pine Gully, but I could be wrong. It's just 18th Street Pier has been really good.
18th Street Pier would be good right now.
Sunset.
Sunset definitely being in the back of Dickinson. Yes.
Sunset's a real low pier,
Perfect for a 6-year-old.
and can be pretty exciting,
Yeah,
for a kid.
I think that's what we've talked about before,
Mm-hmm.
where we would take Gray. Because you were mentioning the Eagle Point Pier. I think that we should clarify that that's not there anymore.
Yeah, we do not have a pier any longer. Our pier was taken out by Hurricane Alicia,
1983.
1983.
That's a long
It's one of the
time.
longest piers around, but Hurricane Alicia took everything.
Okay, Ralph wants to know how much bait is needed per person. So
That's the open.
somebody's phone is going off, guys. And I put my do not disturb on. I apologize.
Hold on 1 second. Technical.
Oh man,
There we go. That's okay. Keep going.
So
you lost your feed, honey.
It's okay. We didn't lose our feed. You're still alive. Go ahead.
Ralph wants to know how much bait per person,
Yep.
and I wish I would know if he wants for flounder fishing, for trout fishing. So that's kind of an open-ended question. But typically, when I leave to run a party, Eric, I take a quarter shrimp per person, and that's what I do. The last thing you want to do is
But explain why. That's not a great answer. Ralph is looking for more than that.
because you don't want to run out of bait.
Okay. Well, nobody wants to run out of bait.
Yeah, but if you're fishing,
The reason why, Ralph. So what David's trying to say. Come on, bring your A game to the.
that is
to
my.
the-
I mean, I don't
bring-
want to run out of
Bring your
bait.
A game to the listeners. So, the deal is that when you go out with a quart of bait, the traditional size shrimp you're going to get, the traditional size is going to be a 50-60. So sometimes the shrimp are going to run smaller than 50-60s. Sometimes they're going to run bigger than 50-60s. But a 50-60 count shrimp means you're going to get 50 to 60 shrimp in a pound. A quart of shrimp is comprised of approximately 1.5 pounds of shrimp.
Sure.
So in one quart, you'd get a 50-60 count, you'd get roughly 75 shrimp.
And you're going to have probably 10% mortality.
So when I go fishing, or when David goes fishing, when Rebecca goes fishing, one of the things that I like to do is keep a good live shrimp on. So if I go out there for 5 hours, which David and I, if we go, we're going to go at least from 6 to 11, 6 to 12. So if we're fishing for 5 or 6 hours, I'm going to go through 50 to 75 shrimp.
Yeah, if I'm fishing with Eric, if Eric and I go on a trip, I'm taking 3 quarts of bait because I know how Eric will go through his shrimp.
But that's kind of the numbers behind it. So when we tell customers here at Eagle Point, when we're working behind the counter, they say, well, about how much bait should I take? And we say, well, depends on how you're going to fish.
And how many people are fishing.
Depends on how many people are fishing, depends on what you want to do. But if you're aggressively trout or red fishing, about a quart per person if you have 2 or 3 people. If you have 4 or 5 people, you might be able to get by with, like, let's say 4 people in a boat, you might be able to get by with 3 quarts.
3 quarts. Yeah. Then it just depends on how aggressive you're going to be.
But the other thing is if you are getting on some nice reef structure, Ralph, and you're anchoring the boat in some good spots, and maybe you're not catching keeper trout or keeper redfish, but you might be catching a ton of trash fish. So there goes roughly a quart of bait.
And then so you're out of a quart and a half of bait, and then you make a move, and then you're on some really good fish, and there's 3 of y'all, and you got 15, 18 fish in the boat, and guess what? You are out of bait.
That's right.
Oh,
So you don't want to run out of bait.
not when you're on a catching spree.
Now, and then quickly to answer the question, with croakers, you do not take nearly the quantity, because when you fish with croakers, one of the best things about fishing with live croakers that goes a little bit unspoken of is that live croakers will really decrease the amount of trash fish, non-keeper fish that hit your bait. So,
And you're constantly not reeling and casting.
in a live croaker, you will not get as many small trout that you can't keep legally. So you can throw a croaker out, a medium-sized croaker, and let's say if David and I are going, he and I would take 2 dozen to 3 dozen croakers. Well, 3 dozen, maybe 4 dozen, but 2 to 4 dozen.
Correct.
And you're just not going to get the trash fish hitting the croakers. You're not going to get the smaller fish hitting the croakers. But as far as action, shrimp is absolutely the very best action you're going to get. That's why you got to take more shrimp, because everything will hit a shrimp.
Yeah, this time of year, shrimp's the key. So I would tell you that if you're traveling by boat and you're making a run and you going somewhere where there may not be a bait camp in the distance or anything, you don't want to run out of shrimp. Let me give you a little story. This is a funny story. So Brian Castile keeps his boat here. Mm-hmm. And Brian Castile, we always, typically once or twice a year, I'll go fishing with Brian and Dr. Jerry, his dad. And one day we decided to go to the jetties, and I was at home that day, and Brian called me up and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." And he goes, "Hey, my dad and I are going to the jetties. You want us to pick you up?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll meet you at the yacht basin." So we go by the yacht basin, we get stopped. It's about 9 o'clock in the afternoon, we get to the jetties, and in like 4 hours, this is during the Black Drum Run, in the spring. And in 4 hours, we ended up catching 62 black drum between 30 to 50 pounds. And another fishing guide, a friend of mine, Mike Williams, was out there, and he finally called me up that afternoon. He goes, "How many fish did you all catch out there?" Because he was by us. He saw what was going on. And I said, "We caught 62. And he goes, "You're telling me in like 4.5 hours, you all caught 62 black drum?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, he's like, 62. And I said, "Yeah, Mike, we caught 62. And he goes, "That's crazy." He goes, "I've been there all day and we caught like 27. And I'm like, "Man." And he goes, "Well, why'd you only catch 62? And I said, "We ran out of bait." And he goes, "So you know what the rule is?" "What?" He goes, "If you don't have enough bait, you can't catch more than 62 fish." So
That means you had a lot more bait than he had.
you can't run out of bait, right? You just can't run out of bait.
Hey guys, Ben has a good question. What time of the year do y'all sell croaker? Is your preference to free line or add a shake weight?
Man, good question. So the little rattle rates, little plastic shake weights have, kicked off years and years ago. I know Steve well that developed them. In fact, I was probably one of the first guys to use them when he developed them. But typically, if I'm fishing live croakers and it's that time of year, I take a hook and I take a weight. And I adjust the weight according to the current of where I'm fishing. And so, no, I don't use shake weights. I just use a hook, I use a weight, and I get on it. And if the fish are there, they'll eat. At times, a shake weight may help, especially if the bite's a little slow. But other than that, we'll use a 1/4 ounce, 1/8 of an ounce weight, split shot, and I adjust it as the day goes on according to the flow of the currents.
What are you showing, honey?
Oh, I was going to show him. It's Bruce.
Yeah, it is, yes,
Ben.
Ben.
Oh, Ben. I'll use this is a 1. I'll use a 3, and I'll just put a 1/4 ounce weight, and you can go smaller or larger depending on the current, and also depending on how much shell you're on, but mostly the current. And I'll have just the line, just the traditional 14 or 15 pound fishing line, and I'll just put this slip sinker. I use a Windy Marshall, I like orange, and I'll just put this on the line, and it just goes freely. I do like to put a little orange or red bead right there. I just go straight to the hook.
And the bead keeps the knot from getting up into the weight. So he basically Texas rigs it. You can Carolina rig it or Texas rig. A Carolina rig is the weights above the swivel. Then you have about an 18-inch leader in the hook.
The Carolina rig, when you put that weight and it goes, to that swivel, that's great. That's like David's saying, that Carolina rig is nice too. The only thing about the Carolina rig in Galveston Bay, in certain sections of Galveston Bay, and this is what you'll have to decide for you, Ben, whatever's best, is that if you get on some really big time oyster shells, then that swivel likes to get caught up in those shells. And so you just got to make a decision if it works for you. In certain situations, that swivel breaks off a lot. The line just cuts off right at the swivel.
Yeah, the swivel just eats it in the shell.
All right, guys, let's talk about the weekend. What can we expect?
I'm sorry, honey. Ben also wanted to know what time of year do we not sell croakers?
Well, hey, we will have croakers as long as we can keep them. Typically, that's what we do. The dead of the winter, the croakers disappear. But like last year, we had them for, I don't know if we may not had them for 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Maybe 3 or 4 weeks in December we didn't have them. Maybe. But what happened, Ben, is a lot of people have learned, no, not a lot of people. There are some anglers that have been coming to us in January and February, and they've asked for these croakers, and they have found that it keeps them from catching the small trout, and they're able to, instead of catching, like you'll hear us say sometimes, instead of catching 30 trout per person to keep 10, then they find it better that they use croakers, because with croakers they can catch 10 or 11 or 12 trout and keep 10 if they're going to keep them. And so we've had more people buying croakers in the winter
and fishing for trout with them.
I would say the last 2 or 3 years it's become very popular.
So
much more popular than before.
Yeah, and we try to carry them. And then we do carry the croakers for the flounder fishermen, because it seems like when the flounder season really kicks off, the number one baits are, of course, mud minnows and finger mullet, and they will disappear on you to where they can't catch them. But we stock croakers for that purpose.
All right, guys, talk about the weekend.
Well,
Weather-wise?
hey, for the first time, no tropical systems in the Atlantic or in the Gulf. I was going to say that. Eric said, don't say it, you're going to jinx it. But it looks like we're good. We do have some rain forecast coming up for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I really wouldn't let it scare you too much, because if you can get out in between the rain, it seems like the wind's not supposed to be that bad.
No, the wind's supposed to be 5,
5-10.
5-10.
So it may get a little bit, depending upon the storms. It may get a little gusty, but it's supposed to, but it's not supposed to be bad. So it looks like this weekend, another repeat. Stay close. Fish to where you have safe harbor in case a big storm does kick up. You can get back, and the fishing right around the camp's been good. So where else should you launch? Launch somewhere where you can get back to safe harbor pretty quick.
Yeah,
and Eagle Point provides that.
And one of the meteorologists I was listening to this morning said it's not going to be all day rain. It's going to be, you might get a shower. You might get some rain, but it's not going to be all day, and it's not going to last long. So that's positive.
And the other thing is, we have talked to numerous anglers, and they just weren't prepared for the rain. If you're prepared for the rain, that really helps. Yeah. So go buy and get that slicker suit, because when you're in the boat, that rain jacket that I always take and just quickly throw in the boat, that doesn't work. I'm guilty of not being prepared. Is what I'm saying. Right?
I've got good rain gear, and I've learned, if you don't have it, you're going to get poured on. Mm-hmm. But if you put that rain gear in the boat, you'll never get wet.
Yeah, and I'm saying I am terrible about this, and so I don't know that helps anyone else, but I know I'm terrible about it. Yeah. I need to get some serious rain gear. You
got to get a good rain gear jacket, especially this time of year, because the rain this time of year can get a little bit chilly, a little bit of a chill in that rain.
All right, what about the bait supply? How are we looking?
Bait supply looks good.
Bait supply is
I don't think
real
we'll
good.
have any. We have croakers, we have shrimp. I think we'll be in good shape for the weekend.
Alrighty, guys. 2 things we want to let you know. 1, we're on YouTube. Our YouTube show is the Galveston Bay Fishing Show.
Galveston Bay Fishing Show.
That's right.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Galveston Bay Fishing Show. We need you to subscribe, y'all.
Yeah,
it's important.
That is important, and we want to be able to give you this information, and we're putting in lots of tags so that you guys can find us easily if you forget Galveston Bay Fishing Show, but hopefully you won't forget Galveston Bay Fishing Show. And then we also started our Galveston Bay Fishing Show Facebook page. So I tagged it in the status, as I mentioned at the beginning. So if you could go ahead and like our Galveston Bay Fishing Show page, that would be awesome as well. Anything else you want to add, guys?
No, tell your friends. Tune in. We'll be here next Thursday, God willing. And
that's it. Hey,
yeah, everybody have a great weekend.
We've had a lot of people on the show watching and participating. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Thursday.